All right, how's it going, everyone? This is Anon. None of this is financial advice. This is for entertainment purposes only. So I want to go on and see if we can talk about some different stocks today, because obviously it's an interesting day on the market. Let's see who joins us and hangs out with us. So let's do this. Let me load up a couple things. What's up, CJ? What's up, Lemon? All right. So what do I... Oh. What's up, Ben? How are you, bud? I had a bunch of DMs that I just caught up on. Need to make sure everyone's good. How's everyone doing? I'm just saying, it looks like I had 3 comments, but there's only... Oh, what's up? Hustle's here. Oh, and jumped to 5. Okay. We're slowly coming on. So what's going on, everyone? So this evening, I went to a work event, did some networking. Hit her down the toilet. Yeah, less wealthy today. Yeah, well, pretty much everyone is. That typically happens when you have long stocks and the market is tanking. So let's go ahead and see what we see. Let's cover all this stuff. And I told you guys, I guess yesterday, that I saw the spring being down from 210. So let's take a look at today. Right? This to me looks like the beginnings of a spring. So we broke through the 210 mark, right? And if you guys remember, we pulled up a Wyckoff accumulation chart. So let's pull them up. So let's talk about it. So remember, if we're in phase C, which is where I think we are right now. So I basically said this is the 210 line right here. We're looking at them pushing it down for the spring test, right? So they'll come up, they'll go above, they'll cut through basically the 210 and probably the 220, probably push up to the 240s, back test the 210 mark, and then at that point we should see a move up. So just checked in, $2, yeah. I was going to say, so if we're following this Wyckoff schematic 1, we should be roughly here-ish. So let's say this is 210, this would be about 2. So we could see like 180s maybe. That's obviously a guess, but the house is burning down. So let's just cover the macro, right? Because obviously everyone's freaked out. The macro is huge, and it plays into all this stuff. So here we are on the SPY, right? We had came up here to the 230s, pushed down, tested a support line, a resistance line, I guess you should say. And now we're pushing down, right? And we will probably retest these lows from June. Now here's the big if, right? So if this is what's going on, right? If this happens, you will see pretty much all stocks push down if that's what's going to go on. But because everyone's so bearish right now, we probably are going to see some sort of run at some point because we do have gaps. If you look back here, there's a huge gap here around 408 to about 398, right? John says I should have sold at 340. Yeah, you could have if you want, or you can accumulate, you can do whatever you want. So for me, what I'm doing right now is I'm slow playing this, because every time they've dipped down to lows, right, there's usually some sort of spring that happens. And this is just pure Wyckoff. This is not like, yeah, if Kramer's feeling bearish, that means that we're probably okay. And that means that the SPY, IWM, and all these other stocks are going to probably run. Because remember, they have a gap up here in the 4s. So that's, something that could easily, depending on what, happens tomorrow, they're going to go, all right, well, 75 is already priced in. Now we can go back up. So. But if Main Street media is telling you to be bearish, that means they're probably going to push it up. Because basically, if you do the inverse of what they're telling, I guess the way I want to propose everything is this. So whenever you have Main Street media telling you what you should be doing, it's because they are literally doing the opposite of that. For every single buy, there is a sell. And for every sell, there is a buy. And so whenever this happens, right, when everyone goes and says the world is falling, they'll push up because they can make money burning the premiums on the puts, right? Because everyone's going bearish, they'll just push it up. And when everyone is bullish, that's when, like back here, when we hit this all-time high here, it was IDVM, but let's go to SPY. When we were up here, everyone was bullish. This is the new normal. Then we fall all the way to 360, and it bounced back up, and we're cutting through all these. Shadi says, anyone got any spare change? That's an ATER vet. Yeah, we've talked about this before. And I know people are like, obviously, nobody likes seeing their thousands of shares down here at 2. But every single time we push down heavily, it usually comes up on a spring. And it doesn't matter what ticker it is, it's just how it is. So let's go over ATER real quick. Oh, hold on. So let's cover this period right here. This was the run up to basically 19 a share. So they gapped down huge right here, and they pushed it all the way down to the 304, right? Is that 304? Yeah. And then they ran up to like 19. Okay. So then we fell all the way down, right? And we fell and we fell and we fell. And this is where I thought we hit a spring test. We consolidated a little bit, and then it went down even further. So whenever we look at Wyckoff, let's pull up Wyckoff again. Somewhere there's Wyckoff. Did I close it? I think I closed it. Let me open it up again. Sorry. You notice this is not just a straight line up or straight line down. It literally is bouncing off of resistance levels and support levels, right? So when everything looks the worst, that's typically when you want to be averaging down if you can. Because at some point we're going to hit a spring test. We'll back test, right? We'll go over the supports, back test the supports, and then at that point there'll be a run. Everyone knows right now on Ethereum that right here, this green line is our warrants. They have to push the price up to at least this level to unlock those warrants. In the meantime, what they're doing is they're just going to push it down as much as they can to accumulate shares. This is what happens with accumulation. Right? So when everyone else is freaking out and selling, this is where you make your money. Because if you're able to average down, get your price, your average price down, at some point when it runs, you will be profitable. That's just how it works. And obviously, there are always exceptions to every rule, but what phase do we think we're in? I think we're in C right now. I think this is literally C. So for me, I think we're going off of 1, and we've came up and we've tested, some support levels and resistance levels. Here is support. My guess would be this would be about 220, and I think this is 210. So we should cut down into the 1s soon. And at that point, if you're able to lower your average when it's down here, you should be fine for when it runs. This is just how I trade stocks. When things look bleak, that's typically when I go the heaviest in. And for me, I will be putting in a pretty large order myself, because of all the hard work I've been doing at work. I'm supposed to get a bonus, and once that bonus comes in, hopefully we're still down here in this level, and I can add a bunch of shares there. Because I know that they need to get the stock price minimum higher, right? So if these are in the 2s, this is probably the 3s and 5s, somewhere around there, roughly. But yeah, I think at this point with this stock, as long as you're taking a look at it, let's pull up Ortex for you guys. All right, so here you go, right? Look at this. So everything's in free fall, right? Everything's bad. Now we have a very important event that's happening tomorrow, right? We've got the Fed actually putting out their numbers at, I believe, 2 p.m. tomorrow. And at that point, everyone's already priced in, I think, like the downturn. So this would be an opportune time for them to really push down the last bit and then start actually coming back up pretty aggressively, especially if they want to unlock those warrants. Now, those warrants are good for years, but at the same time, the last time they unlocked the warrants, it was March, and we ran in April. They just got to be unlockable on September 6th, which was here. This would be the last push down, and then hopefully what we'll see is we'll start seeing some like actual buying pressure starting up, and then we'll see volume again. So that's kind of what I see right now. Is I think it's following Wyckoff like to a T, and then we should see a spring, and then we should see some like actual like volume heading up. Is it a perfect science? No, it's not. But at the same time, I do think that we are closer to whenever things look really bad. Like, let's go back a little bit. Look at this. When they pushed down here, it was hard and it was fast. They gapped down hugely, got all the way down to their low here, and then it ran. Same thing with here. You push down hard here, consolidate a little bit, and then we ran up. To me, this looks like we're pushing down hard here, and at some point we should see it reverse. Now, if you look on the MACD, what we should see tomorrow is maybe a further push down, depending on what the Fed does. If the Fed does things and it pops back up and everyone's bullish on the SPY again, and the IWM, it will cross over on the MACD, it will go ahead. But like, you look at stochastics, you look at CCI, it looks like at this point it's the worst that it's going to be. We'll see what happens on the TTM, but this is where you want to, at least for me, this is where I'm going to buy the majority of my shares, because as you've seen, it can move up pretty aggressively with not a whole lot of volume. And at some point, these guys are going to want to unlock their warrants. So once they want to unlock their warrants, this price is going to fly back up. So as long as you're patient, I know that's not like strength of retail, but like as long as you're patient, I think we are going to see a run at some point on this stock. Let's cover some other ones. So IWM, right? This is an ETF that's been beat down for a while. It had its highs up here in the 240s, and now it's moved down into this consolidation run. Give me hopium. All right, your average is at 8. I mean, it's possible they can get back up there, especially with like 7 million shares. They're going to have to push the price up. And ideally what they're going to do is they're going to probably have to slap the ass pretty aggressively, because retail at this point does not want to buy Ethereum. There's a handful of people who are still very much in, but overall, as a whole, it's going to take a lot of like movement for people to jump back on board with this. So that's a like key thing to think of, because that means that they're going to have to aggressively hit the ask on the price to move it up. Once they move over 10%, you're going to start seeing more like day traders. So we're looking for volume. And obviously at this point right now, we're not getting a ton of volume on a lot of tickers that are memes. And this is pretty normal. All these get pushed down pretty aggressively. We traded 1.8 million shares today. That is not a lot. And let me pull up just some statistics so you can see. So we had 1.8 and 850,000 were sent off exchange, right? So it's 47%. It's been higher in the past, but I'm just throwing it out there for you guys that this is where when you see these like, you know, hard pushes down, you're going to see a spring happen at some point, and it will move back up into a consolidation range probably. So let me see if DZ get back to me. We're supposed to do something. I apologize to DZ the other day because we were going to do something on Sunday and I lost my phone and I've been locked out of Discord on my phone. So if you've tried contacting me, I apologize. I just haven't had my phone. And that also affects another thing, which is like the entire server right now is set up with a 2-factor authentication, and so I'm trying to get everything back to like normal. But I'm not able to just check my phone throughout the day, and I was out in the field today. So Josh says we need Anon's silky voice calming down people. What's up, Jonathan? How are you? Yeah, I mean, it's when other people are freaking out, this is actually where I feel the most confident buying, because I understand at least they have to get up to here and even further than that to really unlock those warrants. So I'm fine if it pushes down into the ones. I almost hope they do so I can average down even more. This is just mine. The house is burning down. It's all relative, right? If you look, the SPY's down, the IWM's down, like everyone's bearish right now. It's all perspective. It's all perspective. I was talking to somebody today at this networking event, and they were basically kind of explaining to me that they were obviously like, they were into, I think I wrote it down. Let me pull it up. I think it's LabU. So let's pull it up real quick for them. I don't think they're going to watch, but I think it's called LabU. It's a leveraged ETF, and they've been really hammered down, right? So here's 2001, right? This is at their peak. They got all the way up to 200 something a share. Now they're leveraged, so they're always going to be bleeding. But you look, and they basically double bottomed here. And now they're finally consolidating in this range. And at some point, they'll get a run, probably. There's a ton of stocks like this where, Okay, I'm catching up on comments, sorry. I remember famous, be greedy when everyone else is fearful, fearful when everyone else is greedy. You know who it is, Josh, I'm sure. But it's Warren Buffett who said that. If you stick with your convictions and you understand what you're investing in, then you're fine. Stock prices are not a reflection of how a company is necessarily doing. It's just how they're performing on the market. And with the market being what it is, with these small caps especially, the stock is going to get slapped around wherever they feel like pushing it because we have no volume. Like I can easily show you 1.8 million shares traded. That's a tiny amount for what we are. Yeah, sarcasm doesn't translate well over text. But yeah, it was Warren Buffett for anyone that's not familiar. So for me, I look at this and I just go, this is an opportunity to average down even more. So, and I'm good with it. I am absolutely good with it. And there's a bunch of different stocks that I'm in that I'm like, yeah, they're all hitting like all-time lows or recent lows, right? Like DTC, they were down another 5%. They dropped below 5 again. There's a bunch of these stocks, right? So all these small caps are going to have obviously issues, and they're going to have, but I look at this and I go, this is accumulation. They'll probably push down again, and then you'll see a run. This happens for a lot of these stocks. So let's see what happens tomorrow. Obviously, it's 2 p.m., I believe, for the Fed minutes when they come out. I bought till it hurt today. I got my average closer to that warrant price of 338. Hey, congratulations, Just Investor. That's a good average to have. I am in the same boat. My average is in threes, and I think we're going to be fine. I did have to add a bunch to get it down because, we've been buying the stock for a while. But every time it dips, it's just like another opportunity if you're long. And some people are going to play this short, and that's totally fine. We should see a warrant run at some point on that, Ethereum in particular. So we now hit like recent lows. The all-time low, I believe, is like 142, which is the joke that Tarifa has. But he must have 1 billion shares now. I don't yet. If I had 1 billion shares, I would go ahead and recall all of them and make sure that this thing flies. What's up, Vlad? How are you? So who wants to talk about like macro stuff? If you want to talk macro, you want to talk like, we know shipping containers are coming down. They're going to restock. Their margins are going to get better. If you look here, Ethereum shorted a bunch today. Like, their short interest is climbing, right? Oh, sorry, that was DTC. No, is it? Hold on. It says Ethereum. Yeah, they're still... That's probably a day's cover, and that's what it is. Maroons. Either are a good topic. Talk unemployment. All right, so let's talk about this. So unemployment is a very important statistic or stat to basically take a look at. And at this point, they're pretty resilient, which is good and bad because it's going to make the Fed go, the economy is not doing what we wanted it to. They started raising rates, but the economy still is pretty strong. Even like retail sentiment, while it's down, the actual numbers are actually like pretty healthy still. So with inflation, it's like, how should I put this? Inflation right now is obviously at recent highs as far as it goes. I was not born in, I never experienced the gas crisis in the 70s, but what I can tell you is this. The Fed is going to raise rates. We know that. But I do think that Powell is going to go ahead and like kind of, I guess, everyone thinks that he's going to back off. And which would mean that we would see a reversal tomorrow to burn all those, people that were buying puts. Like, we could look at open interest, but I can tell you right now, I would imagine there's a ton of puts right now in the SPY. Everyone's bearish, and whenever that happens, that's usually when things pop. Sorry, I'm just drinking some water. So, to me, I'm not worried. Yes, the Fed is always working in the rearview mirror. That is somewhat true. They do take other statistics in like hand with this, but like I do think the Fed is going to try to do the right thing. What they should have done was back when we were hitting all-time highs on the SPY, they should have been scaling back and like reducing their balance sheet and raising rates. They were a bit slow to the punch, and which is why we're having all this volatility now. So, lots of calls on the VIX. I mean, I'm not there as far as that goes. I do think we will see like lows on the SPY, but all right, John, you take it easy. Remember, take a deep breath. You're okay. Like, the stock will run at some point. They need to get it at least up to here just to unlock warrants. So you know at some point it's going to come. So if I can leave you with anything, I can leave you with that. All right, so what do you guys want to talk about tonight? I'm not doing calls on the VIX yet. I think they may push it up tomorrow. Oh, we were expecting, 75 basis. We got it. Let's be bullish. Because sometimes the stock market doesn't make sense. Have a great night, John. Appreciate you coming in and hanging out. So you guys tell me, what do you guys want to talk about? Like, we can talk about macro, inflation, all those things, but like, I'm not worried about unemployment yet. I do think at some point it's going to be a problem, but it's not yet. The labor market right now is still pretty strong in the U.S. at least. I guess I was listening to a bunch of Bloomberg when I was driving, and I thought there was a couple good points that were made by a couple people, which is basically that until this is going to be a reason why they're still going to raise rates. Is BBBY done? No. Here, let's talk about BBBY real quick. All right, because everyone's like, oh, it ran up and now it's down. To me, this just looks like consolidation. So we have gaps up here in the 20s. We have a large gap right here, which did not fill completely. It never made it past this line. So right now, we're in basically this consolidation things. We've got an earnings call that's coming up here on the 29th, and you're going to see it push down probably in the meantime. Lots of companies laying off. Yeah. No, I mean, they're going to go bearish at some point. Like, the majority of these companies are going to get, like, they're going to be bearish. They're going to see layoffs. There's all these things that are doom and gloom. And if you think about this, when Kramer is saying doom and gloom, that means that we're probably going to see the market bounce. Will it go down further before we bounce? It can. But at the same time, most of us that are like in here that have been talking about stocks and like hanging out in the Discord, I think most of us understand that, you can profit, obviously, day trading and stuff like that if you want to, or you can do what's the longer thing, which is you can find companies that you like, buy at these low levels. You have to take a look at their price per earnings, like a bunch of different factors, but, overall, the stock market goes up over the course of time. We may have a couple like down months, down years, depends. Let's pull up the weekly. But let me show you. If we look at the SPY, for example, right, and this is the weekly, right? Everyone was doom and gloom. This was COVID. We ran all the way up from, 218 to 480 something, 481, I don't know, roughly. That was a massive bull run. Like, we're talking about, these are weeklies. So, like, you look at the volume. This is when basically everyone was buying the dip. And what did they do? They literally were pumping it this entire time. Now we're starting to get into this turmoil. We can see a drop. We can see a major drop depending on what happens on the FOMC. But with everyone being so bearish right now, my thoughts are almost like they'll probably try to fill those gaps that were left up here. Let's see. We did gap there. We gapped at, what was it, 40 something? Yeah, there's a gap right here. Slight gap here in the 420s. And then, oh, sorry, we're on the weekly. So let me go pull up the daily. Yeah, so here we go. So when we gapped right here. So this is at 208 roughly, all the way down. Yeah, sorry, I was on the daily. I was on the weekly, not the daily. But there are gaps. What's up, Random? How are you, bud? Yeah, so I could see us, I mean, you can see this long wick, they pushed it up, right? They pushed it up. So I think we're getting closer to like areas of support, depending on where they try to push it. So you guys tell me, what do you guys want to cover? I mean, so BBBY is in the same boat as a lot of these like small caps where they'll run at some point. You just need to like kind of weather the storm. All right. So let's see. What are we doing here? I just got a message. Ford. Yeah, Ford was rough. ATER is just doing what ATER is doing. ATER basically is pushing down probably towards a spring. Yep, and if you're patient, you're fine. Like, this was a strong support for a while, right? We've bounced off here. We didn't quite get there, but like this has been a support level. We can push down because I think they did short stocks today. But what we'll see is we'll get into the oversold at some point. You know, we're very close to oversold on like the RSI. So like we can easily see this turn around pretty fast. And when they do it, they'll do it hard and fast. So just want to throw that out there. Need to wake up. It throws out a random set of letters. LKAU. I don't know if you're messing with me, but I'll try it. Yeah, there's nothing there. Yeah, so Hustle, are you in for it at all? Or you're just eyeing it because they're literally fell off a cliff? So Grundy, so here's the deal. If you were talking about Ethereum, obviously with naked shorts, they did have naked shorts. They did. And this is not a like conspiracy theory. I had followed up with Ethereum at some point, and they were basically, you know, they're not going to say anything, but without saying anything, they were like, listen, like the people when they were like the FTDs were piling up, brokers were the ones that were defaulting because they didn't want to buy those shares, right? So the brokers don't want to buy the shares until they like literally improve on their price. Hold on one second. There we go. All right. Yeah, so if you want to cover Ford real quick, we can do that real quick. Yeah, so they kind of fell off a cliff today. There was a huge amount of selling. Obviously, they came out with a forecast, and it was not great news. They basically like lowered guidance. They said they were going to be incurring, I believe, $1 billion in expenses. So that's why you had such a large sell-off today, right? So they pushed down. They had a gap here, which they filled today. So let's take a look. Do they have any other gaps down here? Tiny one here. 11. We already hit that, right? Nope. I need to zoom out. All right, so there was a gap in the 11s. We're not there yet. So Ford's probably going to see some sell-off into tomorrow, and then you may see a rebound back into this like cloud. Yeah, no, I totally feel you. We've got people in here who have invested like 600,000, $500,000 into Ethereum. It is frustrating. So what I think happened with here, let me pull up Ethereum so you can kind of follow along. So the brokers were the ones failing to deliver, right? So when we had this run up here, right to 7. Brokers were literally failing to deliver their shares. And the reason why was because they didn't want to buy them up at 7 when say you bought at 5 and now they're $2 difference. They were going to wait and basically let the price come down before they covered those. The other part of this is this. So the private placement allowed a large amount of shares to basically, naked shares to be covered because they didn't, Armistice did not hold on to their shares. They literally sold them onto the market, which allowed them so. Ford in the cloud. And they didn't get broker. Wait, they didn't get any broker? Sorry. Can you elaborate what you mean by that? They didn't get any broker. I'll take a look at your ticker. AMT. The idea group. Yeah, they had a nice run, but they left a huge gap here. So this is going to fill at some point, and let's see if they filled it recently. So whenever things gap up this much, you have to take that into account. The brokers were the reason for the naked shorts, and they didn't get any broker. Yeah, so think about this. When you buy and sell stock, if you're a market maker, right, your job is to provide liquidity. So even if you don't have the shares, a lot of times they'll still play the game and sell you things. It's not like they're going to be like, well, we're out of shares. We can't sell you anymore. They will always allow you to buy in for most of these things. Yeah, it will reach. Yeah, the whole market right now is just in the tubes. We'll see what happens tomorrow. If it's bearish news and the stocks, the SPY tanks, that's one thing. But with the amount of puts they have right now, I wouldn't be surprised to see the SPY just rip. Broker used both ways, broke and broker. I mean, that's one way of looking at it, sure. But yeah, so basically what happened with Ethereum was when the private placements came, it flooded the market with shares, which allowed them to cover some FTDs. And, they're pushing down again. We'll see it, we'll see a pop at some point. We all know that this green line is where they need to get the price to just to unlock any shares, so. Broker used both ways, broke and broker. So yeah, let's talk about whatever you guys want as far as, you want ETFs, bought more today, wasn't so bad. Yeah, I mean, Ethereum was down 9 cents. And while that's a lot, it's not that much. 4% on a stock that's, from back in the 340s, we will see these levels again. I promise you, as far as they will push down and then we'll see a spring back up. maybe back in October, November. Could be that long, could be shorter, we don't know. Let's talk about the Muffin Man. Sure. I was out at a corporate event tonight, and we had some drinks, and I'm hoping that tomorrow I'll have a little more time to actually be on my computer, write up some DD. But that's my goal right now. But I just, this last couple of weeks has been really intense as far as like, was 250 days ago. I'm not getting excited until it breaks over 10. Yeah, I mean, so here's my honest opinion on this. I think realistically, this 5 to 8 range is going to be kind of like the target where they want to get back up to at some point. Yeah. It's one of those days. It's been a long day. My kids are sleeping right now, but man, I was putting my daughter to bed and I was having trouble keeping my eyes open. And so I did have an interesting conversation with a local business person whose company's done pretty well. Do we get that high without catalysts? Yeah, we can. So we can actually get that high because they need to push the price up above the green line just to unlock warrants. So minimum you're going to see. So the lower you can get your target down as far as, or your price down, your average price, the better you are because you'll see profitability more easily. I'm not telling you anyone needs to, but for those of you who are unaware, every time the Muffin Man is mentioned, you have to take a drink of alcohol. Appreciate it, Grundy. Yeah, I'm still here. I'm still talking about the stock. I will write up some DD just to kind of explain. I know people typically need their handheld. I will try to get into the office early tomorrow to write up something, but it usually takes me a couple hours to write up DD. I just haven't been in the office the last 2 weeks, so I've not had a ton of time to really comment or even Sorry, I'm getting tired. It's not even that late. Normally I do this at 11 something, but I didn't get a ton of sleep last night because my son woke up. He's still got the morale of ATER is down. So here's my thing. I know nobody likes seeing the stock go down, but at the same time, if you know that this stock has to get above this line and you're able to average down, I don't understand why people are upset. If anything, you literally can lower your average to, this is the goal. If you get your average to here, that's where they can unlock the warrants. And they're going to have to do a bunch of them. To unlock 7 million warrants, you're going to have to see a run. So, yeah, I appreciate you guys coming and hanging out. I mean, I know this didn't go the same way that we all hoped, which was back here. The biggest mistake people that were in on the stock, looking at the TA, all that stuff. I had a price target of 8 something in mind, and it didn't get to that point. It literally bounced off this line. So we had a nice run up. So if you were buying down here, you had a nice run of $5. You went from 2, I think it was 210 all the way up to 7 something. So, but yeah, the supply chain will help things because, all right, shipping containers were the biggest thorn in the side, right, of this particular stock. So when you are sitting there bleeding, right, how many people are going to get to back you? Not a ton, right? This is when everyone's bearish on it. They're this thing's screwed. this is where things usually pivot and change. So I think we do see that at some point. All right, so Putin's speech got postponed. I mean, this is all going to revolve around the FOMC. Like, that's literally what's going to happen. Like, which, if anyone that's new doesn't understand that, it's just the Fed minutes. So the Federal Reserve is basically right now on a mission to try to lower inflation. That's their biggest goal. If you're not up and covering everything on this, I will try to summarize the best I can. So we know for a fact that the Fed needs to cool down the economy, which means raising rates. They also need to start actually dealing with their balance sheet, which they have not been doing. So there's possibility for further pain, but at the same time, if everyone's getting bearish, let's pull up the SPY. If everyone's getting bearish, that means that there's a ton of premium to burn on the put side. So would it be crazy to think that at some point, being that we left a huge gap here, for us to reverse and come back up to these levels to fill in the gap? No, I don't think that's crazy. I think it's going to be probably 75 basis points is my guess for the FOMC. I think the market's already priced it in, so I wouldn't go crazy, but I wouldn't be surprised to see the SPY pivot and, head up. So that's my thought is I think everyone's preparing for 75 basis points. Fed minutes should be tomorrow at 2 p.m. So we should see at least the market's all waiting right now. Like if you look at the SPY, the market's waiting what these minutes are going to reveal. There are probably people who are in the know, which already know what's going on, but yeah, so if they raise a full, like 1 instead of 75, then yeah, we would probably see more downward pressure. It wouldn't be shocking, but at the same time, I just feel like whenever everyone feels really smart, that's when they burn people. So but yeah, there's gaps on the SPY up in the 4s, and I do think at some point we will probably retest those areas and see what happens from there. But things don't typically travel in a straight line down or up. Just always remember that. Yeah, I mean the market can basically open however it feels like. My guess would be they're either going to pump it in the morning or they're going to tank it. Yeah, I mean it can always go sideways until we get the 2 p.m. stuff, and then at that point we'll see a major swing one way or the other. Josh thinks that if anything other than 75, if it's only 50, the markets will not see it aggressively enough to deal with inflation. That's probably true. Inflation is a difficult thing to tackle, and I think it's mainly because we see aspects of like CPI data, but it doesn't paint the big picture. And with the labor market being pretty like robust right now, like there are literally more jobs available out there than there are people in the that are filing unemployment and all those things. So at some point it will happen. Yeah, this too shall pass. But yeah, with everyone being as bearish as they are, I do think we could see a rip at some point. I don't know when it's going to be, but there's a gap, and gaps tend to fill. And we know there's a gap at 4 something, so could it run down the 360s before running back up to the 4? Yeah, that is absolutely possible. Most people are going to be on the sidelines with their cash until they kind of see what happens. You are correct there, Sadi. Oh, sorry. You guys hear me? Yeah, so tomorrow's going to be a very important day. We will see what happens with it. So what do you guys want to cover? Anything else? Hold on. All right, I'm reading Random's comment. That's one way of looking at it, but some traders use volatility to build a nice nest egg. Yeah, I mean, so I do think there's more pain to come, and that's me being a little bearish, but I also understand from a different perspective, which is the market makers and people who have gone completely bearish on this, like, there's still gaps up here. And that means at some point we're going to see a bounce. Not sure where it is, but it is. Just make sure to pop into the ATER chat when it's dumping so people can chill out. I mean, people are going to do whatever they're going to do. Like, here's the honest truth. Retail, while they own a good portion, is not what drives the price of Ethereum, Josh. And I think... I think we talked about this briefly, but we've talked about this before, but with Ethereum, when it was up at 7, they were like, well, I don't want to sell because like it would let people down. And I totally get that, but at the same time, I had a friend that dumped out a large amount of shares and the stock price didn't move hardly any. Whoever's slapping the ask or like slamming the bid, they don't care about retail. We are a periphery thing. That's like honestly, that's the like honest truth. If you sell 200K worth of shares, it's going to move the price slightly, but not as much as you think it will, because the algos are the ones running all this stuff. Yeah, I mean, people want to be nervous, that's fine. I just keep bringing up the fact that the warrants are at 320. It doesn't matter what the price gets down to. It matters where the warrants are, because at some point they're going to have to get them unlocked. So, it's all relative, is what I can tell you. Is everyone good? Like, I don't need to like talk anyone off. Grundy said, do you think Reddit is helpful or hurtful? All right, so it's a dual-edged sword, I think. Part of the problem with Reddit is, and let's pull up some Reddit stuff. All right. Look at stuff like this, right? Stretch my, yeah. Okay. Let's move across the guy's name for a second. This may be very well a retail trader that's just, nervous because he's an average at 16. That's fair. Like, he should be concerned, but at the same time, will the stock price go back up there at some point? With BBBY, if you look at their gaps on the TA side, they have large gaps here in the 20s, right? So if his average is 16, if he's patient, he can hold on. We'll probably get some more information here. You could see a run at some point, because typically stocks will run up on pre-earnings and then dump if they feel like it. So yeah, we are literally along for the ride. The market makers, their job is to provide liquidity, whether or not they have the shares or not, and they'll figure it out later. That's kind of what we learned with all this. But at the same time, there's money to be made on all these stocks. You got gaps here, gap here, didn't fill all the way in. So, like, you're going to see at least a run to 15 on BBBY, and you'll see another push at some point to fill in this 20-something gap, right? 22. No, I agree with you, Grundy. So, with Ethereum, the short squeeze sub did get nuked, and people were, the stock price went down, right? So, like, the stock price tanked because Armistice dumped out their entire position, right? So they sold at the top. They dumped up here. That sent the stock down. So they were able to make some decent money on this, and I'm not going to be surprised to see them do it again. So, but yeah, Reddit overall, I think, is good in some ways, but at the same time, like, it's a dual-edged sword because you can hear confirmation bias. I'm trying to be as objective as I can because I feel like everyone is owed that because for me, while I like this stock, it's not the only thing I hold in my portfolio. I have a lot of like blue chips. So for me, I have a certain percentage in Ethereum, and I've gone over that, when it was dropping down back here from this run up here, when it was just kind of free falling, like I averaged down. And so my goal for right now is just going to be accumulate as much as I can at these low levels, knowing that they have to get back up at least to this green line. As far as Reddit goes, you can enter into bits of a kind of like an echo chamber. And while I love Reddit, I think the best thing I can do to try to help is to provide what I can for analysis. And that's going to be my goal, is to try to be as honest and straightforward as I can. I'm not trying to sugarcoat anything, because this run right here, I thought Armistice, honestly, was long. And I wasn't expecting the largest shareholder of Ethereum stock to dump out their entire position. Now, a lot of reasoning why they would do that is because they would then own over 10% of the company, because they already had a ton of pre-funded shares, pre-funded warrants along with common shares that they bought down the 290 level. And so for them, it was very profitable for them to push it up and then unload their entire position. Will we see that again? Probably. Probably we're going to see it push down, hit a spring, and then we're going to be back up here. And then people are going to, be like, oh, well, they'll FOMO in and do whatever they need to. I love Reddit. Reddit's great. But I'm trying not to like be the like echo chamber where everything's perfect, because it's not. Like, all these stocks are affected by the macro, which is the SPY, the IWM, all those things. There's always variations, and there's always things going on that affect the macro, like the war in Russia, right? I even labeled these out. So this was Bullard's comments right here. The stock market did not like that. Pushed down. Then Russia invaded here. Went to earnings and consolidated for a little bit and then ran up. There was no news. There was no volume either. Like, all this stuff just happened. So, yeah, and how about this? I will make sure I will put out some fair, accurate DD for Ethereum at some point. I appreciate there was a guy starting a YouTube channel that covered Ethereum, and I think that's great. And I actually gave him a shout out on Reddit. So I hope people look at it from a TA perspective and kind of understand what's going on. Yeah, there's no truth in social media. It's got so many bad players and bad things. I will always at least try to do the best I can for retail, because I am a retail trader, and so I'm not trying to lead anyone astray. My biggest goal, and this is where I told you guys, I made a big mistake because I assumed Armistice Capital, because they just bought their pre-funded warrants and their shares back here at like 290, I thought they were going long. And then, yeah, if they sold a couple shares up at the top, that's fine. But man, what was the YouTube channel? Yeah, I think we can find it. Let's see. I commented on it, so we can give the guy, if you want to watch, I think it's this one. So if you guys want, you can take a look at his TA and all that. Oh, sorry, hold on. I put the wrong link. Give me a second. It was this one. So I don't know Wyckoff G personally. I've never talked to him, but, you know, I'll give him a like. He did cover ATER, and he actually was like, okay, so we hit the descending wedge, we fell down, we hit the descending wedge, we fall down. That means that probably by, I don't know if he has it labeled, that would be roughly maybe November. We could see this kind of bounce, and then come here and break out. So, do you believe in the MOS on AMC? So, and I am not as confident on the MOS on AMC as I am on GameStop comparative. Like if I was comparing the two, AMC just, some of you know this, I'm not that bullish on AMC. I think that the CEO, APRN, screwed retail investors and has done it consistently. So, I'm not a big fan of what they've done. And people were like, "Oh, this is going to send AMC to the moon with the APE dividend," and I was like, "It's not going to do anything." Like I read through, and I was like, "This is not going to change anything." But yeah, if you want to go check this guy out, he's got some TA on Wyckoff G. If you want to give him a shout out, there you go. What do you feel about Astro's stance on AMC? I don't know. Let me see. Yeah, so I've got a buddy of mine that is pretty heavily in AMC, and I told him, I was like, you just need to be careful because obviously APRN has snaked retail in the past, and he's not like the only one. Even GameStop issued out an ATM during the squeeze, though it at least raised them a couple $1 billion, so, or $1.6 billion or whatever it was. Unfortunately, with AMC, they literally could have squeezed way past, you know, their 70 mark or whatever it was. But yeah, he got the dilution he wanted. And I if you go back to my videos, I talked about this, and I said I don't think this is a good thing for the stock. And I said have our CPA friends look at it, and the consensus was essentially that, yeah, like APE was not a good thing for investors. It was going to dilute. It was always meant to be that way. I think people misinterpreted how it was written out, and you know, obviously now you have a weird thing going on there. Can it still squeeze? Sure. But at the same time, I don't think it's anytime soon. So, to me, AMC is not as organized as GameStop. Yeah. Listen, I'm not like a full-on Cohen fanboy. I'm not. I think he's a smart guy who can run a business. At the same time, he's not proven to be, you know, I don't know how to describe it. I would say this, and I'm not trying to like spread FUD on anything. Their goal is to save the company. So that meant issuing out an ATM, even though it didn't make sense from a retail perspective. So they get to raise a bunch of cash. But at the same time, it's, you know, it's dilutive. So I don't think any CEO at this point is looking at things the way they probably should. Sorry, I'm reading. Yeah. So AMC literally is, they basically use retail to basically prop up themselves. Yeah, I don't want to talk bad, but at the same time, it's like they literally can still run. But it seems like every single time they do anything, APRN interjects himself, and I know they're raising cash, and that's a good thing for the balance sheet, but at the same time, it's like it's dilutive to your shareholders, which means that you don't care that much about your shareholders. I would love to see someone like BBBY do a share buyback, because that would really actually put pressure on the shorts, but sorry. My centered comment. Do you think GME is still a play? Yeah, I actually do. So the reason why I think they're better organized is this. Obviously, they have the DRS bot. They also have conviction that I haven't seen in a long time. So I do think at some point GameStop will probably fly back up at some point. I don't know when it's going to be. If I did, I'd be a richer man. But I do think that at this point right now, GameStop will probably run up another time. It may not be ever as high as it was, but until shares are DRS'd, completely, they're going to chop around. Well, it was $30 pre-COVID, but remember, they diluted a ton during COVID. So you may never see those, or it would be a while before you see those $30, shares. Always remember for ones especially that diluted, APRN literally sold into the squeeze. Yeah, I mean, full theaters is a good thing, and hopefully they get back on their feet and they can kind of turn it all around. But yeah, as far as the squeeze thing goes, I don't think it's going to be anytime in the immediate future. I could be wrong, but that's just where I see it. Oh, sorry. I agree with your reason. However, a huge number of investors can make it squeeze. Yeah, no, here's the thing. With AMC specifically, AMC has always been the redheaded stepchild, right, of these meme stocks, because their CEO basically, there's a huge gap down. This gap is going to fill at some point. So I expect this to be back up in the 16s at some point in the future. Don't know when that's going to be, but yeah. AMC has a chance to obviously accumulate down here and then fill in this gap in the 16s. The stock's 8, so you're talking about 2x. So I do think this stock in 2x, maybe even 3x, depending. So all right. Sorry, the yawn's picking up. I'm tired. I'm going to try to get to sleep early. I watched 330K bleed from AMC. Don't be me. I never sold. You're not the only one, Grundy. All those different, people thought APE was going to cause the MOAS. The only thing that I can tell you is this. You're not alone in that. There's plenty of other people that also believe in the stock long term. I did talk about ATER a couple times, Sensor, but yeah, nothing's really changed. We're going to see what happens on the FOMC minutes tomorrow, because that's going to have a huge impact on, all stocks. So, okay, I'm going to go to bed. I'm sorry, I'm going to go to bed. I'll rerun. Yeah, if you want to go back, and yesterday's I covered, I think around 6 minutes, maybe 6:30, maybe 6:20, something like that, from yesterday's video. I covered Wyckoff. So, yeah, listen, I appreciate you guys hanging out with me. I will continue doing these things, indefinitely. I will just keep doing it. But yeah, I am tired. My kids woke up in the middle of the night last night and kept me up, and so I'm burning the candle from both ends with work. And at some point, I would love to be hanging out with you guys and trading stocks all day long. Obviously, this is not a great time, but my goal at some point is going to be to cover this stuff live, and maybe someday I'll get to that point where I can do that. Because I do feel passion for this stuff. I love the stock market. It has so many flaws, and it's so messed up right now. But overall, like, I enjoy this stuff. And, I'm not going to talk bad about my work, but it's not as fulfilling as doing this stuff. But at the same time, I can't get paid doing this stuff at this point compared to what my salary is. So, like, if the stock runs, and what I've realized is this: I need to add more value, which means that I need to create a system where all the people that are in the Discord can tap into kind of like the numbers and kind of see that, and that's going to be a lot of work, but at the same time, I think we can get it done. It's just a matter of time. So my goal is going to be, especially when the winter comes back in, I won't be going out as much. I'll be in the office pretty much every day, which is kind of what happened with the last run. I was in the office most of the time. I was able to kind of cover stocks better, stream things. And then March came, and then April came, and we ran. So my goal would... Which numbers? Oh, yeah. So, like, I would like to be able to create something like a spreadsheet, which I've kind of already started, that we literally can share with anyone that's on our trading group. Like, I want to be covering gaps. I want to be covering, like, the macro, like, all sorts of things within it. That's the goal someday. Like, I want to be able to provide a better service, if you will call it that. And I feel like with my job in the summer, when it really picked up, I've not been able to do that as much. So, I mean, the goal is going to be always to give you guys as much, like, information as I can, and I will try to do it for free. Like, because for me, I just enjoy talking about this stuff. So someday, maybe we'll get to a point where that can happen. At this point right now, I only get, like, let me see what my YouTube monetization is. I'm not paying the bills with YouTube, or the Patreon now has gone to pretty much a non-existent level. So I don't care. You guys can see this. I'll just show you. I'm going to make $17 off YouTube. Like, it's not a lot. I don't make a ton of money on this. I do this basically just because I want to give you guys as much information as I can. Yeah, I mean, like, listen, I'm not making tons of money. I know somebody was like, "Oh, well, you're making money off these people," and I'm like, I'm really not. I do this because I enjoy it, and I have enjoyed hanging out and talking to people about different stocks. I don't make any money. I know we've had the optionality guys on there. I don't make any money off that. I just think they're providing an interesting service, so I let them come on and cover it. The only one that actually, the Dilution Tracker, we don't have any, like, I've never received any money from them, but I do believe in their product because I think it's such a, like, easy, interesting way of, like, you can literally type in the ticker and be like, this provides pretty solid information, right? Like, you can see their cash positions, you can see offerings, I think Sean's got a great service here, and so that's why I always plug them. So, yeah, I appreciate you guys hanging out. So, my goal is to try to provide you guys with better information in the future. I'm still trying to figure out how to do that, but I do want to get to a point where I can give back and kind of share everything that I'm doing. Like, at least you can at least see the same numbers I am. I'll try to obviously incorporate Fintel or text, any tool I have. I'm trying to share with you guys. That's why I let you guys ask me tickers, and we go from there. Hey, I appreciate it, Grundy. Thank you. Cheers. So yeah, like that's the goal right now. And I want to, and obviously we went from a heyday where we were getting 2,000 views on these videos to literally now we have like 30 people that hang out with me. And that's totally fine. My goal is going to be, I want to find different tickers. I want to see, yeah, now you made $22. Unfortunately, YouTube takes a huge cut. So, but I still appreciate it. YouTube actually takes a decent chunk of tips and everything else, but it doesn't matter. Like, to me, I do this just because I like hanging out with you guys. So I totally appreciate you guys hanging out with me all these nights, and my goal is going to be able to provide information for you guys in the future, to do it better, and I'm going to keep working on that, especially in the winter when I have more free time where my job's not as crazy. I will go ahead and I will find a way of making sure that you guys have access to whatever I have. I actually just signed up for another service, so and I will be able to buy a burger from McDonald's. He needs fries and a drink. I don't right now. I appreciate the at this point right now. I bought Morningstar. I bought Ortex. I bought Fintel. I bought Delusion Tracker. And I bought a new one, which is going to be interesting. I'm going to try to provide information, but it's a guy who literally covers volatility. So I'm going to try to share some of the information. I'll basically like write up summaries of what this guy does. So that's what I spent all the money on. Like, I don't make any money off this, really. I did in the beginning, like when Ethereum was running and things were great, but at the same time, I used all that money just to buy all those services for a year. So, but yeah, this is the goal. The goal is to try to make sure that eventually I can provide a better service for anyone that's listening. And I'll keep plugging away at it. I'm not going to stop. And, you know, in the long run, I think we started a nice little community, and we can go from there. And so I will continue trying to get better at this and providing a good service, you know. And I appreciate you guys just being here and hanging out. So with that, I wish you all a great night, and I will talk to you tomorrow. All right, have a great night, guys.